Hare Krishna, we welcome everyone for today's discussion. We are reading from second Canto, chapter number 6. We are supposed to read from that chapter, but I have some other plans for all of you today. So let's offer prayers today and then we'll begin our discussion. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Nashtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyataya Deshatanine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gotase Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Mostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you all for joining in. So happy to be with all of you after a little short break. I guess this is post Janmashtami. We are meeting it, or maybe we had one session between probably. Maybe I'm just a little bit catching up on my thoughts. So before we begin our discussion, just wanted to check with all of you. This second canto, chapter number 5, the concept discussed in it is quite technical. And now today we are supposed to discuss chapter number 6, which is a very, very important chapter titled as Purusha Sukta Prayers. Why our acharyas have titled this chapter as Purusha Sukta Prayers? Purusha Sukta Prayers are one of the most ancient prayers which are mentioned in Rig Veda. Whenever there is a trouble in this world and Brahmaji is not able to reconcile, then Brahmaji, along with all the other devatas, he goes to Shiva Sagar and he offers prayers. We all have heard about Brahmaji going and offering prayers, just like before the appearance of Lord Shri Krishna, when Bhudevi was very much disturbed because of the atrocities by the demonic forces on this planet, and she had approached Brahmaji. And Brahmaji, understanding the situation, not able to reconcile, he, along with Lord Shiva and other devatas, and along with Bhudevi, had all gone and offered prayers. So what prayers do they offer? That is said to be Purusha Sukta Prayers. So why this chapter has been titled as Purusha Sukta Prayers? Srila Vishnu Jagati Thakur These are not exactly the same Sanskrit of the Purusha Sukta prayers, but the meaning is same. So we will discuss about that maybe next time. So what I am planning for today, I wanted to revisit chapter number 5, not in the way of the verses, but in the way of theme. And the theme that I want to discuss today is Sarga, primary creation, which has been briefly discussed in the 5th chapter, but would be discussed at length in the 3rd chapter. So today's discussion will be largely of what has been briefly introduced in the 5th chapter, and then will be again discussed at length in the 5th, 6th, 7th chapter of the 3rd canto. So mix of that, we'll have a discussion today, rather a presentation I'll be offering, and we'll discuss from that. Why I'm doing this and why I'm taking a break from our regular flow of discussion, because what is the subject which is about to be discussed in 6th chapter is very, very important. But prior to it, if we can just a little bit understand a little bit more in detail of how this whole creation happens, how it all begins, what's the role of the Lord, then when we go into this Purusha Sukta Prayers chapter, we'll have a far better understanding and appreciation. From my perspective, if you ask me what is the most important chapter, of course, the 3rd chapter of 2nd canto and the 6th chapter. I would say 6th chapter is the most important. There is a lot of things for us to learn from it, and there is some realizations of Brahmaji which he shares. So we'll discuss that. Maybe if need to be, I may have 1 or 2 sessions on it. I will not rush into it that way. Fine. So with that, with all of you, do I have your permission? We go with this primary creation thing. You can give me a hanga, positive. I mean, thumbs up, you know. So like that. So I get to know everyone is on the same page. All right, all right. I'll consider only the votes of those who are switching on their cameras. Huh? Anyways, you've decided to be a silent observer. So your vote is not counted unless you switch on your cameras. Okay. All right. Let's begin our discussion. So in the 5th chapter of 2nd canto, what we saw was a conversation quoted by Sukdev Goswami to Parishit Maharaj. Parishit Maharaj at the end of the 4th chapter, or not there, actually in the 4th chapter, had asked Sukdev Goswami to speak about, initially about this creation. How did this creation happen? He wanted to know about the Lord's potencies and energies like that. And then Sukdev Goswami at the end of the 4th chapter, he says, well, I'll answer your question by quoting first Narada and Brahma Samvad. So let me begin with a question for all of you. If you remember in the 4th chapter, because I only had done the discussion, I remember that now. In the 4th chapter discussion, we had spoken on the point on why Parishit Maharaj, being on the deathbed, he knows that 5 to 6 days from now, he would be sure, for sure he'll be dead. Why he would like, rather than, it's not that Parishit Maharaj was not educated in all this thing. One thing, kind of a disclaimer, it's very important for us to keep in mind, either while reading Bhagavad Gita, while reading Srimad Bhagavatam, please understand the cultural setup. At that point of time, the audience to whom the subject matter was spoken was not novice, uneducated, beginners like us. I'm sorry to say that word. What I mean by uneducated is not materially uneducated, but on the spiritual side, how the Vedic text plays out. So the audience was not like that. So Parishit Maharaj was already educated, he had a great upbringing under the guidance of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Everything was there, Vedic culture, Vedic Gurukul, everything was there, which means he must have studied all of this thing, no doubt about it. So I raised a point, Srila Prabhupada actually mentioned the purport, we discussed that. Why Parishit Maharaj, when he already knows about his material creation, he knows his gati is spiritual world. Why would he want to know more about the material world? Why there has to be elaborate discussion? 2nd canto, this question is 8th, 3rd canto, 4th canto, 5th canto is all about this world. The dynasties in this world. How did all these 8.4 million species came into existence is what largely the discussion that happens from the 3rd canto onward in the 4th and 5th. The original dynasty began with the Swambhuva and Satrupa. Swambhuva, Manu and Satrupa had 2 sons, 3 daughters, and that's what the discussion up to 6th canto largely. The 4th canto is Uttanapa, the younger son. The 5th canto is about Priyavat Maharaj, the elder son, and the 3rd canto is about Devahuti, the later part of the, he had 3 daughters, Devahuti, Akuti, Prasuti. And the sixth canto, or the fifth canto, where is Daksha Shiva pastime? That's come the fifth canto only, right? Yeah. The sixth canto is actually about Ajamil. Yeah. And there in sixth canto, you have Kashyapa and Diti. You know, one of the daughters of Daksha got married to one of the daughters of a woman who I believe Prasuti, and from Daksha and Prasuti had 16 daughters, and 13 daughters were given in marriage to Kashyapa Muni. And from there, all the generations came, all the different species came into existence. So why would somebody who knows, is not that he would not have heard like all of us. We would have heard something for the first time that there are three Vishnus. Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Kshirodaksha Vishnu. It's very difficult for me to comprehend that Parikshit Maharaj was not educated into it. Parikshit Maharaj was not taught, about lunar mission. Was not taught about this fictitious solar system that is taught to us. He was taught. So my question to all of you, why Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring about Lord's potencies? How do they play out in the material world? How does the material world come into existence? What's the reason? Ideally, if you think from this perspective of this culture setup, Parikshit Maharaj should say, Bas Sukdev Goswami, only tell about Braj Leela, because I want to meditate only about the Vrindavan pastime, because that's what my destination I want to be. I don't want to hear about all this thing. Just tell me. He could have done that. Any idea, any remembrance, recollection? Yes, Mother Vasanti, you're a very good note maker. Whoever is a good note maker has a good recollection.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. According to me, I feel that Parikshit Maharaj always wanted to be under a spiritual master, and a greatest devotee by the Lord's grace himself is considered to be a greatest person to whom we can speak and then get knowledge. In spite of we knowing everything, it's always better to go to a spiritual guru.
Correct.
Sukadeva Goswami was an excellent guru.
See, one thing that you will see there for Prabhupada writes in the purport, that Arjuna is asking this question not for himself, but for future generations.
Yes.
Parikshit Maharaj asking question, just like the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, why Arjuna wanted to have see universal form. And Prabhupada very categorically mentions, Arjuna was not attracted to that. Arjuna wanted so that for generations to come, for future generations, no, scoundrel can come and say, I'm God. If somebody says, I'm God, then he has to prove himself by showing the universal form. So Arjuna had asked this question for future generations. So Parikshit Maharaj also asked this question for future generations. But what was the idea of this question? So close to what you're saying, but in actual detail, the reason was, he wanted to teach us, don't be very specific when it comes to choosing about Lord's pastimes. Lord is absolute, his pastime is absolute. Before you can understand his leelas in the spiritual world, how he interacts, Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna says, the most esoteric knowledge among all, guhyatamam, is my relationship with my devotees. And what is spiritual world is all about his relationship with his devotees. That's what happens. So Lord says, before you can actually know that, first of all, you have to understand the glories of the Lord. So Parikshit Maharaj wanted to set that principle very clearly before we can understand the Lord's pastimes there with his devotees. Before that, we need to understand the greatness of the Lord. Because in Vrindavan, in spiritual world, let's say in Vrindavan, Braj Leela, the greatness of the Lord is not highlighted. What is the subject matter of the Lord? In Vrindavan Leela, it is the relationship of the Lord with his devotees which are the highlights, and not the greatness of the Lord. So to establish the greatness and to be clear once for all, we are not gods. We can never become God. So stop envying the God. Stop envying the Lord. Therefore, the subject matter was picked up. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj asked. So that is a background. Let's move forward. So Sukadeva Goswami begins to quote Narada Brahma Samvad, where Sukadeva Goswami says, once upon a time, Narad Muni approached his father, Brahmaji. Narad Muni is one of the Manasik Putras. He's in fact the 10th Manasik Putra of Brahmaji. Manasik Putra means who appeared from the mind. Prior to these 10 Manasik Putras, there was appearance of Rudra. Rudra means 11 forms of Lord Shiva like that, who manifested from between the eyebrows. And prior to that, there were 4 Kumaras. It's not very clearly mentioned how 4 Kumaras appeared. but 4 Kumars were born to Brahma, and from Brahma, and then came Rudra, and then came this Manasik Putra, like that. So Narad Muni goes and approaches Brahmaji, which you all have studied in the previous discussion, and he asks 6 questions. Yad Rupam, Yad Ashtanam, Yad Srishtam, Yad Samastam, Yat Param, Yat Cha. Let's take a look at it. So Narad explains about his convictions and his doubts. In his conviction, Narad says, "Oh, Brahmaji, my dear father, you know everything about creation. You are the supreme independent Lord. You create by your energy like spider." Very interesting. An example is given by Naradji. Spider, because it creates through its own saliva and wants to wind up and moves away.
Yes.
Doesn't depend on anything else for creation. So he says, Brahmaji, you are independent. When you want to create, you create. And when you want to wind up, you wind up. I know no other source but you. But now Muni raises question, but I have a doubt. If you are that independent supreme personality of Godhead, my question is, whom are you meditating? Why are you sitting in the meditation pose with the eyes closed? Dhyan mudra mein aap kyun baithe ho? Why are you sitting in a meditation pose? Whom are you meditating? Is it that someone is more powerful than you? Kindly clarify my doubt. And then Brahmaji tells very clearly, first of all, Brahmaji thanks Narad Muni. Narad Muni, thank you so much because your inquiries have given me opportunity to meditate on the greatness of the Supreme Personality Godhead. And then he makes a very profound statement. He says, out of ignorance means those who are caught up in aham mamiti, I and mine, they're so distracted, they don't understand the actual truth. And they superficially say that I am the Supreme Lord. If you see whoever in the history had been of Asuric mentality represents aham mamiti. That's the beginning of Asuric mentality. And if you see in the history, whoever had Asuric mentality, they have worshipped Brahmaji or Lord Shiva. Now, across Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, etc., they might have worshipped Lord Shiva, but at least one thing was clear for them. The creator is Brahma. Because scriptures mentions it. They all were Brahmanas born and who became demoniac either because the mother was from demonic side or whatever reasons were there for individual cases. So they were all under scripture, and scripture says Brahmaji is creator. So why these people fail to understand, as Brahmaji says, I only recreate what he created. By his material energy, Maya, illusion, people call me the Supreme. Identifying with me and mine, and thus bewildered person talks nonsense. So why people get bewildered? No, not people, why people get bewildered? The point is why bewildered people are not able to actually understand who is the actual cause. And therefore all these Asuric people end up becoming envious of Vishnu. I mean, not becoming envious, they are envious. We all are envious, therefore we are in this material creation. But they exhibit their envy to a greater extent where they want to destroy Vishnu by proclaiming themselves to be the supreme and publicly saying they want to kill Vishnu. And then they aspire for that. Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, they all tried for that thing. So why? Because this I and mine, the illusory energy of the Lord covers their intelligence, because of which they are not able to understand. In other words, man of a limited understanding fails to understand the complete picture. I was giving the example the other time. Let me give the example to all of you also. How with our narrow-mindedness, people fail to understand the total picture. For example, the creation can be compared with a construction of a building. Now, when somebody wants to build a huge township, for instance, then there's an owner who has a plan, and it all begins with desire that lets there be a township. And then there's a whole planning happens. Then he applies for government permissions. He gets his architect map sanction. He does it. Everything's done by him. He arranges funds. He takes a bank loan, whatnot. Then he makes the purchases of the raw materials, and then brings it everything onto the property. And then he hires. Now this man does not build. He is not the one who mixes the cement. He is not the one who puts the brick. He is not the one who raises the steel chambers. He is not the one. What he does, he hires a construction company. Like I was making an example the other day also. Let's say you're walking on the street and you see Larsen and Turbo, L&T construction company. What a layman will think, looks like this property belongs to L&T. But L&T is actually a construction company hired by somebody else who has hired him to perform that. But for a layman, for an ignorant person who only understand things based on his perceptions, based on his what he is able to perceive, he would say, no, no, this property belongs to L&T. Similarly, Lord, that's what we're going to see through today's presentation. That's the discussion partly in the 5th chapter also. It is the Lord who desired. It is the Lord who arranged and created all the facilities and then created Brahma. How Brahma was created, we'll discuss that today. Created Brahma. Then, so now, for example, let's say you are a builder, let's say you're a project owner. You hire a builder. Now that builder gets trained up in a college. He gets some construction engineering degree, etc., etc. Question comes: there was no college when Brahma was born. He had no B.Arch degree. So from where he'll do architecture and all that? So who taught him was also Vishnu. So everything to Brahma was provided by Vishnu. And this is what in the 6th chapter Brahma confesses. That's why 6th chapter is very, very important. This is what he confesses. So everything was provided to Brahma by Vishnu. And then Brahma does the creation of what? Putting up the bricks. Then selling the apartments. There is a separate team. Owner doesn't go around selling the apartment. Then he's selling the apartment, which means creating the yonis, 8.4 million species. And then providing the bodies to all those souls. That is how the whole construction happens like that. So, but people who are so much bewildered by I and mine, okay, let me just talk about this. We discussed last time also. Why it is said aham mameti? Very interesting. Scripture says aham mameti. If you're caught up in aham mameti, I and mine, you'll fail to understand the larger picture. I was quoting an example in the Hindi class. There's a very beautiful movie made on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lifetime. This is back in 1950s, black and white movie. In that movie, there was one particular scene when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, who returned back from Gaya, had become a great devotee of the Lord, was performing Harinam Sankirtan on the streets. And some Brahmanas went to the local, or the king there, I don't remember the person, but Muslim, he went and complained to him. Such and such thing is happening. This Brahmana, born to Brahmana family, he is destroying our culture. He is making Shudras also chant the names of the Lord. And this will cause a great revolution and it will become a threat to your rule. Like that, some of the Brahmanas went and complained. Usko kya कहते हैं? Hindi में क्या कहते हैं? चापलूसी नहीं, कान फूसी कुछ कहते हैं ना? कानाफूसी. What do you call it in English? Just to complain for somebody because you want to fulfill your interest. Something like that was the situation. And that king made a very profound statement. And this is what you see in Mahabharata also. Duryodhana also did the same thing, but let's focus on this incident. He called his ministers and he said, go and distribute free liquor. Go and distribute free liquor. Why? Because immediate sense gratification. And when you get this liquor and all this thing, you don't have control on yourself. You become more bound by the needs of the body. He said, go and distribute free liquor. Again, destroy those people. Destroy their character. Second thing he said, go and threaten them. If they don't stop taking part with Nimai Pandit, will destroy their livelihood. Now, how many of you think if in case you're put into that situation where your family members are provided free alcohol and they're becoming an alcohol addict, your livelihood is threatened. Now you say, "Arey Baba, pehle apne ko dekhte hain, fir baad mein dekhenge." Yes or no? How much you think we will fall into that I and mine concept immediately? So that's what Scripture says. The person caught up in I and mine concept cannot think broadly. And today, if you see, somehow the political personalities have understood this trick. If we keep a person caught up in the mindset of I and mine, this I and mine becomes most prominent when there is a constant fear of existence. Yes? If imagine you're put into a situation where there is no fear to your life. You got a job which is a guaranteed that lifelong you'll have a job. At your will you can retire and the company will continue to pay you stipend or something like that until the end of your life. You have a life insurance policy, everything is covered for you. How many think if you have such kind of, there is no shortage of food supply, There's not going to be shortage of money to you. There is a pakka guarantee of your life. There is no threat to your life well-being. How many of you say, Prabhuji, if this situation is there, I can very peacefully practice bhakti now? Raise your hand. Yes or no? We can study scriptures, we can contemplate. But because the situations are not there, we struggle so much. And this is what creates I and mine again and again. So the way the society is designed today is to create more and more I and mine concept. Now, how I and mine concept further builds up? Religious divide. Make one neighbor fight with another neighbor. This is mine, which means this is my dharma. This is Hindu, this is mine. This is Muslim, this is not mine. And again, I and mine concept. So people entirely forget about the actual picture, who we are, what we are, why we are into this world. And such people cannot understand. Therefore, the leadership is very, very important. And earlier, the good leadership meant to provide security to the citizen. Unless there is security of life, unless there is security of well-being, unless there is a guarantee that will be provided enough food supply would be there, you cannot establish Varnashram Dharma. The Varnashram Dharma cannot function. You know, the God consciousness cannot sustain. Now, why sometimes, okay, I'm just extending this idea because I just wanted to get this point. How dangerous to be caught up in I and mine. Therefore, I'm extending this idea. Now, I just skipped my head. What was I about to say? What was the point I was trying to say? We spoke about the need of the security of livelihood and everything, but Varnashram cannot function. Why the kings in the past would ensure, first of all, would ensure your livelihood, everything is maintained, and then Varnashrama can function. Dharma cannot be practiced. What was the point I was saying? Okay, I just skipped my mind. Anyways, I hope you got this bare minimum at least. What Brahmaji says here, identify a person talks nonsense. So today's world is designed in such a way to keep you caught up with I and mine. And if you're watching news, for sure, love jihad, this crisis, that is where will it stay stuck? I'm not saying it is right or wrong, but my point is, who went and complained to the Muslim rulers about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Were Brahmanas. Who were they? Hindus. Was Ravana a Muslim? Was he? Hindu. And he is the one who is one of the biggest rapists and terrorists of this world. So please get over this whole religious divide. At least as a spiritualist, we should not be divided on the name of religion. I'm not saying you should not be careful about it, but to keep our conscience stooped into it because the news is talking about it, and you're sitting at your home and in your room and watching news and thinking this is bad, that is bad, and you have no capacity to do anything. You're not able to do good to others. You're not able to do good to yourself. Such a person is an utter failure. So that's the point. Just stop wasting time on these things. Okay, let's move forward. Okay, so let's quickly go through Yadrupam. What are the ingredients of creation? All the ingredients, Yadrupam, you know. What is the symptoms of this manifested world? You know, how do we know this for the word Rupam? So Jiva, Dravyam, Kala, Karma, and Swabhava, these all are the symptoms. These only exist in material. There's no karma. Then next, what is Yad Adhishthanam? What is the shelter of this world, of this material creation? So whatever you see in this universe, that is what taking shelter. Narayana is the shelter of that. Veda is a shelter. The shelter of Vedas is Narayan. We'll read in further chapters of this. Gati, destination, Jnana, Tapa, Yoga, Mokha, sacrifice, Loka, and Devata. These all are the shelter of what people take shelter in this world, isn't it? So these all are but nothing shelter of Narayana, under the shelter of Lord Narayana. Yad Adhishthanam. So when Brahmaji said like this, so Narad Muni immediately had a question. Are Baba, everything Narayana do, what do you do? Where everything shelter is Narayana, then what is your job profile? So Brahmaji said, I'll tell you what is my job profile. And then Brahmaji talks in 17th to 20th verse. He talks about Jiva Tattva versus Vishnu Tattva in the 5th chapter, where he says, I am also Jiva, but a Vishnu is Vishnu. There's a considerable difference, tremendous difference between Jiva and. So Lord controls every living entity in this world through his Maya Shakti. And these three gunas bind Jivas. And therefore people cannot perceive the Lord. I am also under the influence of the modes in that way. He is the Ishta of presiding deity of mode of passion. So I am also in touch with modes of material nature, but one who is beyond the modes of material nature is Vishnu. That's a major difference. Then Yatha Srashtam, creation of the universe. How the creation of this universe have happened. Srashti. There are two types of Srashti, Karana, Karya Srashti. Karana Srashti is the project owner, the owner of the project, has a vision to make a township or a building. And with that vision, he arranges everything, all the raw material as we discussed already. That is called as Karana Srashti. Then there is Karya Srashti. Karya Srashti means now where the actual creation begins to happen, where the raw materials are mixed together to give it a shape. That is called as Karya Srashti. So Karana Srashti is called as Sarga done by Vishnu. Karya Srashti is secondary, which is called as Visarga done by Brahma. So we have a concept of immediate cause, remote cause, and ultimate cause. So let me ask this question to all of you. Who is the immediate cause of you? Who is the immediate cause of you? Parents, correct? Your mother and father. Who is the remote cause? So, okay, let me ask all of you here. I asked our local audience, I asked who is the remote cause? They said their grandparents. What would you say here? Those are online. What is the remote cause of your existence?
Remote cause is Vishnu.
Huh?
Krishna. Krishna.
The remote cause is not Krishna. To help you understand, if you're sitting in the fifth bogie and somebody asks a child, who's pulling the fifth bogie, the child will say fourth bogie. That is called as immediate cause. And the little elder child may say, fool kahin ka. Fifth bogie is not pulled by fourth. All the bogies are pulled by the first bogie. That becomes the remote cause. And then you being the parent say, no. That is also partial. Who is the ultimate cause? Engine. So let me ask this. Immediate cause of your existence? Parents. So parents, immediate cause is parents. So which is the consciousness of a small child. Who is uneducated, who is not grown up. Who says, mere sab mata pita. That is immediate cause. In West, accidental cause. Prabhupada says. Prabhupada writes about it. Now, second point. Immediate cause. And then remote cause. Who is a remote cause? Brahmaji. We'll discuss that in a short while. Now, who is the ultimate cause? Mama Evamso Jivaloka Jivbhuta Sanatana. So, who is your original mother and father? Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's how. So who should we be serving? Now, everyone, your immediate cause and remote cause keeps changing. One thing does not change. See, in a train, the fifth bogie can at time be placed at the first bogie. The bogie's position can change. So immediate cause and remote cause keeps changing. What does not change is original cause. And original cause is Lord Shri Krishna. So who is your mother and father now?
Lord Shri
Krishna. I mean, of course, your parents are also your parents. I don't mean that way. But philosophically, we are discussing here. Okay. So this whole Srashti, this is a very beautiful point Prabhupada writes in the purport. To give you a little bit graphical understanding of it, how this external creation have happened. Actually, this creation is happening forever. All the time this creation is happening. Don't think this universe is created only once. This universe is happening, creation is happening always, destruction is happening always. Hey, what do you mean by that? And the example of that, with the world in which we live in, there is one external big creation that happened. Similarly, within the womb of a mother, there is another creation taking place. And that creation and the creation of this world is quite similar in principle, not in details. Is that making sense? Let me tell you. Krishna says, Aham bija prataha pitaha. I am the seed giving father. Seed giving father to whom? Where does Krishna put seed? In the womb of mother. Who is the mother? That is Prakriti for this world. Who is the mother? Prakriti. And then Prakriti, for example, just like the father puts the seed in the womb of the mother, that is called as Karana Shrishti. Now, mother cannot give birth to a child other the seed has been given by father. So it begins with father. So that is Karana Shrishti, primary creation. Now begins Karya Shrishti, which happens within the womb of the mother. Now, in our case, because we are covered over by ignorance, so mother has no idea what is happening within the body. But limb by limb is developed. The egg and the semen mixes together. Emulsification, that process that you would have read in your 9th class biology, it all happens, begins, that's the first thing, and it all begins day by day. It goes on month into month like that. That Canto will read in details about this whole process. So what creation is happening within inside the womb of a mother is almost similar in principle, the creation of this world, like that. So now when Krishna says, Aham bija prataha pitaha, how does it mean there was a union between Krishna and Prakriti? Oh, does it mean Krishna comes in contact with Prakriti? Oh, if that's the case, then Krishna is contaminated by Prakriti? No. That is not the fact. So, Brahma Samhita says, Krishna, through his eyes, can perform all the functions of all his limbs. Which means from his any limb, he can perform, any sense, he can perform the function of all of the limbs or other senses. Just like you offer bhoga to the Lord. How does the Lord accept your bhoga? He does not accept bhoga through his hands. He accepts bhoga through his eyes. He can eat through his eyes. He can walk through his eyes. Similarly, he can procreate through his eyes. But somebody has to get in touch with Prakriti for this Prakriti to get agitated and function. I'm coming to a very important point here. Now, for Prakriti to function, somebody has to get in touch with Prakriti. Somebody has to manage the Prakriti. But this is a big debatable question. So if Vishnu never comes in contact with Prakriti, who comes in contact with Prakriti? Now here 9th Canto Srimad Bhagavatam mentions Sankarshan, from whom Mahavishnu expands. That Sankarshan. Now you have to understand all these different avatars have a purpose to fulfill. We'll shortly discuss about Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha, Vishnu. Somebody may ask, why so many Vishnus? If Lord is all powerful, let Mahavishnu do everything. Na? Why he has to take another form of Garbhodaksha Vishnu? Then from his Garbha some Leela has to happen. And then he has to take a form of Kshirodaksha Vishnu, who has to become a Paramatma. Because every form has a purpose to fulfill. For example, why Lord has to appear as Narasimhadev? If the purpose was to kill Hiranyakashipu, Lord could have appeared as Rama, Varaha, anything. Lord could have come as Krishna and Sudarshan, he could have killed. No. Narasimhadev form was needed because that form had a particular purpose to fulfill. Why? Because Brahma had given a boon like that. To fulfill all those boons, only that form could have done that. So every form has a purpose. Now imagine Vamanadev. If Hiranyakashipu would have gone, if Narasimhadev would have walked to Bali Maharaj for asking for charity, how much charity Bali would have given to Narasimhadev? Think about it. You may say, one Lord can do everything, all potent. But Lord took a Vamana. Vamana means dwarf. A boy. He went as a boy. Yes? Now imagine in the Samudra Manthan Leela, the Leela, Lord appears Mohini Murti. Now why Lord appears Mohini Murti? There was a purpose. You getting a point? Behind every purpose, behind every form, there is a purpose, every creation. Similarly, Shivji. What's the source of Lord Shiva? 9th Canto Srimad Bhagavatam very categorically mentions Sankarshan expands himself as Shambhu. Why Shambhu? What is the need of Shambhu? Now we know at our level, Shambhu means, Lord Shiva means destructive energy. Brahma creates, Vishnu maintains, and Shiva destroys. No, but there is a little higher truth above this. This is part of things which happen within this world, but there is something which happens outside of this world. Sankarshan expands himself as Shiva. And this is this Shiva who impregnates Prakriti. This is this Shiva who comes in contact with Prakriti. That Prakriti is called as Durga Devi. So Krishna to Balaram, Balaram to Chaturvya, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and then Narayana, and then Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and then comes Sankarshan, and from that Sankarshan comes your Mahavishnu and Lord Shiva. So similarly, from Srimati Radharani, Ramadevi, Lakshmi Devi, Parvati, Durga. These are the expansion, and Kali Devi. These are the expansion that happen from feminine form. So Lord Vishnu expands himself in the form of a Shambhu, and that Lord Shiva unites with Prakriti. Again, the union is not, again, please don't become gross in your thought process. Don't think the union that happens in this world by a particular limb, by a particular body organ. No, that's not the way. Now, there is a controversy about Shiva Linga. Well, before I come to that, let me go with the presentation, then you'll understand that. So this is clear so far. Lord expands himself as Shambhu, and it is Shiva who comes in contact with Prakriti. We'll explain that in short, a little more in details. Let's go forward. Karana Shashti, Yataha Shashtam. So what is this Karana Shashti? What happens within this Karana Shashti? Mahavishnu glances at Prakriti. Prakriti gets agitated. That is called a state of Pradhan. This is called as putting a seed in the womb of mother. And from there comes into existence Mahat Tattva. That is, you can call it as emulsification, where the egg and ovum, we call it, right? Ovum and the semen mixes in biological terms. And then what you have is whatever that happens, emulsification, the emulsification process. And then from there comes Ahankar. The Ahankar is born. These are all raw materials. And Ahankar, under the purview of time and the modes, produces respective elements. This is like procuring elements essential for the creation. The essential elements are earth, water, fire, ether. The Panchabhut comes to existence. Then for this creation to happen, consciousness is required. For this creation to happen, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 working senses, these all are required. So like this, by now you have 23 elements ready. So Sankhya Yoga is to study 23 elements. So all those 23 elements are being provided. Now in that, one element is Jiva. So that impregnation, that Shambhu which impregnates Prakriti, which means impregnates Prakriti with all the Jivas. And then divisions of universes happens. According to the size of the universe, the Jivas are transferred. For example, if you are living in a 2 BHK, if you're a congregation, it makes sense to have 4 to 5 people. You make it as ISKCON Youth Center, you can have 20 people adjusted. That's a different thing. But 2 BHK can have 4 to 5 people. 3 BHK can have 6 people. The size of the place increases, the number of Jivatma increases. Similarly, like that, that's the details about it. But this is the Karana Shashti. And this could be very complicated to figure it out. We'll discuss that maybe once again in 3rd canto. Fine, these are 23 elements which have been created. Let's move forward. So Lord Vishnu, Lord Shri Krishna expands himself as Mahavishnu, for whom comes all the universes. How universes comes? He breathes. When he breathes out, you're in the water. So what happens? Bubbles comes. In Karana ocean. So in all those bubbles, those are your universes. So we were making a point other day. Thank God, Mahavishnu is in Yoga Nidra. If he wakes up and he starts doing Yogasana, and in that Yogasana, he particularly chooses Kapalbhati. Ha, hu, ha, you take it, breathe in, breathe out. There's a Kapalbhati, fast inhale, fast exhale. So our life in this world would have been, boom, 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 on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off would be happening. So thank God Mahavishnu is in a Yoga Nidra. He's taking rest. When you have done your Yogasana, the next thing, much obvious thing happens is Yoga Nidra. So he's in Yoga Nidra and all the creation is happening now. All right. Pretty interesting, huh? Garbhadaksha Vishnu, then that Mahavishnu enters into all, and this is, okay, let's take a look at it, how it all begins. This is just a trailer. Kya chal raha hai? Yahan pe Hare Krishna. Okay, so how this all begins. Now let's look in the process. So all begins with Vaikuntha planets. Outside of Vaikuntha planets, there is an effulgence of the Lord which is called as Brahma Jyoti. We are beginning our conversation from the topmost planet, okay? Vaikuntha, or spiritual world. How big is spiritual world? How big is material world? That is discussed in detail in 6th chapter. So please hear this carefully, get this point. So 6th chapter you would relish, otherwise you'll not understand. So here you have Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. Next, outside of that, and after the Brahma Jyoti comes Karana Sagar, where Sankarshan expands himself into. Now this Karana Sagar, but when you talk about this material creation, when you talk about this whole creation, it is not more than puddle of water. It is not more than puddle of water. You getting a point? Now, what is a proof? I'll give you when we discuss 6th chapter next time. When we'll talk about the size of this creation and what is the comparison of the size of spiritual world and the material world, then you'll understand this is not more than puddle of water. Okay, like that. So called Karana Samudra. So this is that Karana Samudra. In this causal ocean, Mahavishnu, original Purusha expansion from Sankarshan resides. Chaitanya Charitamrita talks about it. While Mahavishnu sleeps, Yoga Nidra, golden seeds are generated along with his breathing. Then what happens? In the causal ocean, Mahavishnu, then this Mahavishnu, while in his Yoga Nidra, when these seeds or this have been generated, which is said to be in golden form, then Mahavishnu glances at them. I made a point, right? Lord can do anything with any senses. Through that glances, Lord impregnates these golden shells, which is nothing but Prakriti, his energy. Devi Yesha Gramai, which agitates. So this glance, so you say, where is Shambu here? It is Shambu who comes in contact with Prakriti. So Lord has come in contact with Prakriti through glance. There's no physical touch. But this glance is actually called as Maheshwara, Shambhu. It is Shambhu who carries the glance. So the glance is represented by Shambhu. So who unites? Is Shambhu with Prakriti. So unites, again, don't think in a gross form. But who comes in contact with Prakriti is Shambhu, like that. He is eternally reposing in the neutral stream. Now, where does Shambhu resides? Now, when did Shankarshan transform himself into Shambhu? So now, Sankarshan have expanded himself into Shambhu, right? So Sankarshan expanded himself in Mahavishnu. So we understood where is Mahavishnu. So, which means before this creation thing begins, Shambhu must have appeared also. And Shambhu must be existing outside of this creation. Is that clear on same page? Which means Lord Shiva actually exists outside of this creation. Is that clear? And where does it exist? Vaikuntha, Brahma Jyoti, and then the Karana Sagar. Every sagar, every ocean has a bank. On that bank is your Kailash. That is the interface where Lord Shiva with Parvati eternally resides. And their expansion in this world is called as Rudra. What is called as Rudra. Now this is a big confusion. Shiva, ye Shiv hai, ye Shambhu, ye Rudra, ye Ashutosh, kya hai ye? So expansion in this world is Rudra. And because he's also known as Shiva, Shiva means auspicious. Shiva means auspicious. So, but Rudra means angry. Destruction cannot happen with a smile on your face. Arjuna was not smiling at Karna. There must be an anger on the face. So without Rudropa, which means that mode of ignorance has to be there, destruction. You're getting a point, right? So just trying to make it a little more graphical. Now, how does a Shivji is represented in this world? Very interesting now you think about it. Now for Lord Ram, there's a form of the Ram. Krishna, there is a form. For everyone, there is a form. But when it comes to Shiva and Parvati, you generally don't see Shiva and Parvati in a form. You don't see being worshipped in a form. They're being worshipped in a form of a linga. All of you agree? Hey, why this linga? While I always used to wonder when I was growing up, as you know, there was some of you know, local, those who are connected, there was a temple, big temple in our society, neighborhood, which we used to visit. There all this, for everyone, Lord Ram temple, everyone had. Hanumanji also had a vigraha. But Shivji Parvati never had a vigraha. Now, in recent days, there could be some temples with Shivji and Parvati vigraha. But you look at any ancient artifacts, any ancient temples, there was never temple of Shivji's form. If anything has been found is Shiva Linga. How many of you agree? Now what is being discussed in Varanasi Shiva Linga? They didn't say that we found the form of Lord Shiva and Parvati. So Lord Shiva and Parvati are actually worshipped in this world in the form of Shiva Linga. So there are some foolish scholars and those who want to have a religious divide. They say, oh, look at this. This people, class of people, they're worshipping Yoni. That actually represents genital, looks like genital actually. It represents. So first of all, is it genitals, yes or no? Yes. And it's not only Lord Shiva's genital. Now when you go and see it next time, it represents actually intercourse. It's a union of Lord Shiva with Mother Parvati. Now for today's people to understand this, their mind is so corrupted with the gross sexual thoughts. With just hearing this, they'll become totally contaminated. Now why Lord Shiva and Parvati are worshipped in this form? Actually that represents Lord Shiva and Parvati are the creator. Who started this creation? Lord Shiva and Parvati. Who is the mother and father? Lord Shiva and Parvati. In that way, this form of the Lord is worshipped. Is that clear? That is called as Shiva Linga, which means the yoni of Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati, which indicates the creation of this world. All right, let's move forward. I hope this is clear. Who is Lord Shiva is clear. Shiva Linga and all that. Linga Yoni Atmika Jata Ima Maheshwari Praja. All offspring of the concept of great Lord of this mundane world are of the nature of the embodiment of the mundane, masculine and feminine generative organs. Like that. Okay. Let's move forward. The external potency Maya is the nature of the shadow, Chit potency is worshipped by all people as Durga. Now she is actually the caretaker of the jail keeper of this world. Durga. Ga means Gamana. Jana. Durga जो आपका भगवान की तरफ जाना दुर्गम कर देती है, which makes it difficult for you to escape from this material world is called as Durga. Nobody. Therefore Krishna says, Devi Yeshu Gunamai Mama Maya Duratya. Durgam. It is impossible to transcend Durga. You cannot. But when? Mamevaya Prapadante Mayametam. But when one takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it is very much possible. Why it is possible? The external potency Maya is the nature of the shadow of the Chit potency. Who is the Chit? Representation of Srimati Radharani. Of course, she is Haladini, but what is the meaning of it? Is spiritual world. She is a reflection of that spiritual potency. And Lord Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7 chapter 14 verse, Devi hi Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, while describing the word Devi. Now Devi actually refers to spiritual energy. But why did Lord Shri Krishna call Devi? Which means she's also spiritual because she has been given this task. But origin is spiritual, just like our origin is also spiritual only, na? We have got so it's not that she's part of this world. Lord Shiva is not part of this world. Parvati is also not Jivatma. Is not part of this world. This difference has to be understood. Okay, like that. These are details to it. Let's move forward. To say nothing of this planet Earth, the whole universe with innumerable planets throughout the galaxy is comparable to a single mustard seed. Okay, fine. Yeah. Now, at this point of creation, the eggs are clustered together. So, you know, the eggs have been created. And these eggs are clustered together. They are all together. To go more in details, is mentioned. They are in clustered together. They are together like that. 5 elements are making up the layers covering them, and 18 of the elements are in undifferentiated, unanimated state, which is called as Pradhan. So, जो कारण सृष्टि का हमने चर्चा करा था, this is कारण सृष्टि, right? You see this Pradhan here? Let me just bring the pointer here. You see Pradhan? This is what it's called as overall. So right now it is in this shape. All these 23 elements, now up to here in undifferentiated state. Now it begins to break down. This is what the creation has happened so far. This is Karana. Then creation of matter happens. This creation of matter, you see here, mind, senses, ahankara, this is all matter only, na? This creation of from Mahat Tattva, the matter begins to happen. Ahankara, this is all matter. So creation, controlling deities are elements within each universal act. Pray for the. So now, what something very interesting happens is there are sense devtas which are born. You see sense devtas. So for every sense, there is a presiding deity. So senses are born, presiding deities are born. They are born even before Brahma is born. Now the Garbhodaksha Vishnu have also not come into existence. So when this presiding deities, these are all raw materials. For example, you may bring cement back from somebody. You may bring bricks from somebody. You may get iron and steel from somebody. It's not that you get it from one person, right? There are different people, each stuff for different elements that you get for your construction. Like there's a different devtas are being manifested from the Lord, who are supposed to take care for this whole creation, but they don't know how to do because they didn't have a college degree, which means they didn't have education. They were just born. So third canto mentions in 6th chapter, where the subject matter is again discussed in detail. After they appeared, they again prayed to the Lord. My dear Lord, please give us the inspiration and guidance how we can. So the whole subject matter here, which is going on here, establishes that it is Vishnu who creates. Who is the owner of this project? Not Brahma. Vishnu is the owner of this project. So don't be in any kind of a misconception and forget about you thinking you can become owner ever. Okay, let's move forward. Then the time factor enters as the woman cannot produce unless become a man. This is detailed creation of matter. So what are the stage? Woman, pradhan stage. And then pregnant stage is prakriti stage. And then delivers is mahat tattva. So pradhan stage is pregnancy, where the seed has been inserted or seed has been, sowed, like you can say that, maybe you want to call it. So manifestation of the universal form in the universal eggs. So when these 23 elements were set by action by the will of the Supreme, the gigantic universal form or the Vishrupa form of the Lord takes place. And it takes place by a good 1,000 years. Because Kal have already come into existence. So it is mentioned it takes almost 1,000 years for it to come into existence like that, combined form. And then universal. Universal form ka matlab kya? The moment you say universal form, which means now the universe exists. So universal form is same. The whole universe is standing on universal form, which means Lord is present in anything and everything in this world. And this is what this chapter talks about. How, for example, think about it. All the living entities in this world. Let's talk about mammals for that reason. Trees, we cannot perceive about trees or plants, but talk about mammals for that reason, or even for birds, reptiles, whatever. You see, all of them have eyes. किसी का एक आंख होगा, दो होगा, तीन होगा, चार आंखें हैं. Everyone have there's some way of smelling. Everyone has some way of eating. So everyone have some way of hearing. Yes. Question arises: if all the living entities have this vision, ability to see, ability to hear, from where did it came first? From where did it came first? Now imagine if you are a cloth designer, you are a fashion designer. You design something. So first design happens in your mind. Mind means desire. You desire first that I want this particular cloth to be designed like this, right? Unless you desire. So point is, all these things have come into existence by the desire of the Lord. So when the Lord desired, then the eyes appeared to universal form. When the Lord desired to eat, then the mouth appeared, because the mouth appeared to the universal form, which means that ability became manifested in this world for all of us to have. You are understanding? There is nothing randomly, there is nothing by chance. Everything is happening in that manner by the will of the Lord, by the desire of the Lord. That's the point here. Let's move forward. Within the Mahatattva, the gigantic universal form manifests senses and sense organs. Like that we have it. And then comes Karana Shrishti. Karana Shrishti, this is Karana Shrishti going on only, right? This is again an example of Karana. This is called as all Karana Shrishti. This is that same previous chart I have broken into this ways. This is all part of elemental creation. And then comes Virat Roop. I'm giving you a little bit of prelude, a little bit of understanding. Third canto will discuss this again a little bit more in details that time. Okay, don't get worried if you say that we think that we're not going in details of each of the subject. This is hours and hours of discussion. So let me just briefly make a point here. So the first element which was created in this world was sound. Now sound, ether can carry sound. Ether cannot carry water, right? The sound. From sound manifested ether, from ether manifested touch, and this is all happening under the purview of time. So how many of you know that it is said in scriptures, the creation happened with the sound? Oh, that was the first sound. Bible says, how did this creation happen? By the sound. You look, what is the first element came into this creation? Sound. Like that. Just wanted to add that point here for you to start connecting the dots. The Lord enters the universal form in each universal leg. Like that is described. Lord Kapila tells Devati. When the universal form arises, that is the time when all the universes gets divided. Which was in a cluster form gets separated, and then Jivat Mahatattva, जो था ना प्रधान महतत्व प्रकृति प्रधान महतत्व, at Mahatattva state all the living entities Jivatma gets divided. This is 2 BHK, 3 BHK, 5 BHK, 1000 BHK, depending on the heads of Brahmaji, which will happen later on. Then comes Karya Shrishti. Now this is the mixing of 23 elements begin. How it happens? It begins with the Maya Shakti. And after 1000 years of inactivity, Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters into the universe and enlivens it. So that universal shell lies around for 1000 years, but little bit of action begins to happen in it by the Maya Shakti. That is Prakriti. And then Garbhodaksha. Now Vishnu expands as Garbhodaksha. Why? Because from his Garbha. So when Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters, which means the division of living entities happen. Now the living entities are present not in the body of Mahavishnu, but it present in the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So the living entities who have come into this world actually reside in the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and the very first living entity who appeared from the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu is Brahma. So question comes, can I become Brahma if I cannot become Vishnu? Do I have a scope? Yes, you have very much scope. That I don't know, limited scope, how much scope. But who becomes Brahma? So Brahma ji will speak about this in 6th chapter, is also, and he's already mentioned in the 5th chapter also, I am also a living entity. So imagine you have a project to start and you have 10 people with you and you have to appoint a team leader. Who will you appoint as a team leader? You'll say, okay, let's do a random draw, lucky draw. Will you do a lucky draw? You're going to choose a team leader who's going to play a very crucial role. Otherwise, you will have a headache. Mahavishnu already have declared, I'm in Yoga Nidra. Don't come and disturb me. You have any problem, go to Shirodaksha Vishnu. I will expand in that form, delegated. So, team leader you'll decide based on the skill set for your project. If it's a project is based on Java, you'll not choose a C# developer as your team lead. You'll choose a Java. Now, the purpose of this creation. So now, first of all, understand this is a project. What is the purpose of this creation? Then you will understand what kind of living entity is decided by the Lord to become Brahma. Brahma is a team leader. Or you can call project leader, what do you want to call it? Team leader call. Garbhodaksha Vishnu is the project leader. So, the purpose of this material creation is to reform living entities. To reform of their envious mentality. Now, which means the person should be totally loyal to Vishnu. So among all the living entities, who is chosen to be Brahma? The one who is most loyal to Vishnu. In other words, the most pious living entity. That is our Brahmaji. Is that okay so far? All right. सृष्टि के समय में नींद विंद आए तो कोई बात नहीं, जागते रहे. If you're feeling drowsy because of Srishti, even Lord slept for 1000 years, so that's okay. You sleep for a few seconds. That won't be a big problem. That's okay. So that's what is a Virat Rupa here, okay? In each and every universal globe, the same Mahavishnu enters as Garbhodaksha Vishnu. When Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters, then the division of Jivatmas happen. So all the Jivatmas are within the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So when this material world, not this material world, there are 4 types of pralaya. So one pralaya is naimatika, nitya, prakritika, like that. There are 4 pralaya. So when there is a partial destruction of this material world up to Swargaloka at the end of every day of Brahma, then where does all the living entity go? They enter into the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And they again appear from the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Is that clear? Technically, they enter Mahavishnu only when the universe has got destroyed. Then the Garbhodaksha Vishnu is also not there. Na? He's within the he's within that universe like that. Okay, let's move forward. This is being divided, which we have already discussed. Naval of personality of Godhead. Oh, PPT is not present. Okay. So this I've already spoken about how the living entity gets divided. Brahmaji is born. Who is that? Who is the most pious soul born from the navel of Lord Brahma? And Mother Lakshmi is wondering, इनको मेरी assistance की आवश्यकता नहीं है. Mother Parvati is sitting right next to the Lord's lotus feet. She is massaging the Lord's lotus feet. Whose lotus feet? Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And this is called as Swarat. I mean, भगवान का भी स्टाइल है. एक प्रूफ करने का कि I am the Supreme Lord. Look at it. Mother Lakshmi is massaging the feet of the Lord. And Lord does not even bother Mother Lakshmi, and he procreates. And he gives birth. Mother Lakshmi would be thinking, what an independent minded hai hamare Prabhu. That's the meaning of word Swarat here. Okay, jokes apart. Let's move forward. So we're coming to the conclusion here on the subject matter. So like this, the sarga happens. And like this, there is a constant creation, destruction that goes and happens. Prabhupada says, I conclude with this point. In the spiritual world, there is no creation and no destruction. In the material world, there is always creation and destruction. So, why should we study this subject matter? What is the importance of this subject matter for us? I'll conclude this point, which is the most important point among all the points we have discussed so far. So, before we answer that, the very first question to understand why this universe was created. The universe was created by the Lord to give a chance. To give a chance to whom? Rebellious living entities who wanted to become the controller, proprietor, and enjoyer. Our life in this world is like a movie, like a hero of a movie. Now, what is a movie, any movie about? It's about the aspirations and desires of a film, the hero, the protagonist. Oh, he wants to go to America. Oh, somebody wants to become best cricketer. He wants to become the biggest businessman. He wants to become the biggest don, whatever it is, and get married to his dream girl. That's a standard storyline. In any movie, there has to be hero and heroine. Matlab, as a brahmacharis don't exist only. Huh? But there should be some movies of brahmachari life also, no? The glory of brahmachari life. That this man had an aspiration to become brahmachari. Sannyasi. Anyway, jokes apart. So the point I'm making is about aspiration. Every movie is about aspiration. And then movie ends, aspiration ends. Yes? Nothing, there's no reality in it. Similarly, Haribol, something happened? Okay. Similarly, if you take a case of our life is also like this movie. A temporary movie. Movie is for 2-3 hours. It ends. But the film star is not affected by the movie. He's not supposed to be affected. I mean to say, that is not real life which is presented in the movie. Similarly, we are not what is happening in this world with us. It's just a dreaming state. Prabhupada gives an example, like scripture gives an example of dreaming state. We are into a dreaming state thinking that I am so and so, I am an Indian, I am this, I am that. When this body is taken away from you, you didn't got the body on your demand. The body will not be taken away when you want to give it away. Body will be snatched away according to your prarabdha karma, which has been already set. When body is taken away, then you're not Hindu Muslim. And if you think so much about Muslims, you don't want to end up taking birth in Pakistan. That would be the greatest tragedy to happen for that Hindu fellow, and vice versa. I mean, can you imagine? Most of the Hindu population in the previous life must be, I don't know, I can't say that way, because they're killing cows, so they cannot take a birth as human, But I'm just saying, anyways, that's the different subject. But the point, you get it. Keep your consciousness straight. Don't get too much caught up in this bodily identification and all that. So universe is created to reform the living entities. And here comes the beautiful, which I really like. The beauty of this is the Lord does not create once. He keeps creating again and again. Why does Lord create again and again? Maybe this rascal. In this creation, he will understand. And look how long creation is. 311 trillion and 40 billion years. How much time has been spent by now? We'll discuss this in the later sections. As of now, 155 trillion years have passed. Prabhupada mentions there are certain life forms which takes birth at the time of sunrise and they die by the time of sunset. So if you do with that calculation, or even with the human calculation, on an average, we would have taken more than 155 trillion births, right? In fact, unlimited birth. If there have been 155 trillion years for this creation, फिर भी this rascal is so adamant that he doesn't want to give up this world. So much failure, so much repeated beating we have got. But this rascal is so adamant that yet he does not want to give up this world. And look, within this creation also, again and again you'll get a chance. Again you'll get a chance. Even after the end of this creation, Lord does not say, okay, you rascal, I'm going to create a single creation. I'm going to once do it. See how much Lord has to work for us? How much management, how much he has to do? He has to expand as Maha, Vishnu, Garbha, Daksha, Shiro, Daksha, Vishnu, then Devatas, what not? Huge management he has to handle. Yet Lord does not say, I will only do once creation. Huh? After that, Arya Par. He keeps on creating again and again and again. At the same point, Lord Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, Arjuna, have you understood? If not, I'm willing to repeat. Therefore, scripture says, therefore Uddhava was in tears when Vidurji asked, how is our Krishna? And just remembering Krishna had departed away, he was in tears. Oh, my most loving friend, could be anyone, the electricity went, something loose connection. There could be more loving and more affectionate to us? Camera karo bhai. Yeah. There could be more loving and more affectionate to us anyone than the Lord? Think about it. Focus. Hey, Haribol, don't distract. Focus on what subject matter. Can there be anyone more loving? The Lord is present all the time for us, and on top of it, he explains himself as Paramatma. He's in their heart. But look, the Romeo and Juliets of this world. They're wandering on the street. Romeo is looking for Juliet. Juliet is looking for Romeo, and everyone is looking for multiple Romeo and Juliets. That's what the current generation today, unfortunately. And foolishly, we are wasting life, particularly the youth. I'm speaking this point for the youth because some youth are sitting in front of me, too much caught up with this whole idea of Romeo and Juliet thing goes on with the world. What are we doing here? We're just wasting our life, nothing else. So, what is the importance of the subject matter? The importance of the subject matter first, Krishna's greatness. We understand how great the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we get convinced, I can never be like that. To give an example, 3 years before Badrinath Yatra, we had taken a group on Badrinath Yatra. Early in the morning, around 4:35 around, I was sitting behind the Badri Vishal temple and I was doing chanting with a group of devotees. And around 5:30, 6 o'clock when there was sunrise, so Badri Vishal temple itself is on the heights. And when you go on the height, the nature of the mountain is, the more you go higher, the more higher range is there. When on top of the mountain, there was another big, huge mountain, Himalayan ranges were there. So when the sunrise happened, the first sunrise fell on the peak, and then it began to bathe the whole mountain. When I looked at it, when we were already so much on height, 12,000 feet above ocean level or something, we were above, and on top of it, there was a huge mountain whose peaks were disappearing into the sky. And we were sitting on the foothill of it. Badri Vishal became foothill of that temple became. When I was sitting and looking at the huge mountain for which I had to literally make my face like this, 90 degree up, I was just thinking how insignificant I am. And this is one of the splendor of the Lord's glory, greatness. Now this mountain is present, this huge mountain is present in huge planet Earth. Who's handling the weight of that mountain? Planet Earth, which is bigger than the mountain. And this planet Earth is very insignificant and small in front of other planets like Jupiter. And all of these are manifesting as bubbles from the body of Mahavishnu. What is the length and breadth of Mahavishnu? What is the length and breadth of Mahavishnu? Okay, I have really summed up this discussion. You can begin with the Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Now, all this planetary system are on whose navel? Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So when Brahmaji, third canto will discuss, when Brahmaji woke up on one morning, which is described, which is this morning, which is described, when he woke up on this particular morning, not our morning, his morning, and when he was looking, he couldn't find the length and breadth of Vishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Garbhodaksha Vishnu for Brahmaji was infinite. Garbhodaksha Vishnu for Brahmaji was infinite, and that Garbhodaksha Vishnu is within one of the golden egg. If that Garbhodaksha Vishnu is infinite, infinite times infinite must be Mahavishnu. If Mahavishnu is infinite times infinite, then 16-year-old or 14-year-old Krishna, what is his glory? From whom this have come? So the subject matter is very, very important, particularly for Kali Yuga residents. You should read this subject matter only again. तुम्हारा सारा हाव भाव सब normal हो जाएगा when we understand the glories of the Lord. Second, our humility develops. We become a little sober. And as I said, it also shows Lord's great compassion and love for us. Like this, there are a few lessons we can learn. Along with that, we can also learn about the confidence. My master is so great. If I take shelter of him, can't he protect me from Prakriti? Can't he resolve my own sinful reactions, which doesn't exist outside of this world? He can do whatever he wants. So like this, these are 3-4 things which becomes prominently to our consciousness when we study this subject matter. It's a very, very important subject matter. So with that, I like to conclude and pause here for today's discussion, where we largely discuss about Sarga. How did this Sarga, elemental creation, which is also called, how did this creation happen from Mahavishnu, and a little bit details into it. And we had compared this creation is happening always, how it happens. The creation of this world is almost in principle similar to the creation of child within the womb of a mother. There is a seed-giving father, and then the mother holds a child, and then and the whole process of growth of the child. Similarly, for this creation, the Prakriti, Sanskrit says Prakriti is a mother, but who gave the seed? The father. Who is the father? That is Vishnu. But who carried the seed? That is Lord Shiva. So we have discussed all that thing. What is Shiva Linga? What is the controversy about Shiva Linga? How to understand? Yes, that's a yoni. But that is to indicate that Shiva and Parvati have united together to create this world, to give us bodies. We all came from them, because that is what impregnated Prakriti with jivas. That's a whole thing about it. And yeah, these were but rest all were the details of the subject matter of how this Sarga happens and everything. So next week we'll take the second chapter, second canto, chapter number 6. It's a beautiful this chapter. I hope this little discussion would help you to understand the chapter in a more better way. And I might make this presentation again with little more additions when we go to the third canto. 5th, 6th, 7th chapter would have a similar discussion. 5th and 6th chapter will have similar discussion. We'll discuss more details at that point of time. With that, I'll pause here. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Any questions, any comments on the subject matter? All right, so far so good. So we conclude here.